family, and all praises to the Most High, yeah. And I want to bring out a little edification piece about some things that the Most High have been showing me, and see if we can clear up some misconceptions and some questions that we might have had. Okay, so we know that in the book of Acts, in chapter 17, I think run about 20 something. It says that the disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. Okay, so when we read that, we want to ask a couple of questions, right? First, we want to find out is who called them Christians, and the next question is, what did they actually call themselves, right? Notice it didn't really say that they called themselves Christians. Okay, so let's look into something here very interesting, right? All right, so we're gonna see something here. So we're gonna look into the book of Acts chapter 9, and we're gonna start at verse 1. It says, meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belongs to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. All right, so we see here that Paul is looking for people who belong to a group called the Way, right? So if he found any there who belong to the Way, right? So let's see. Let's look some more about this way and see if this is actually what they were known to be. All right. So let's jump to Acts chapter 19, and we're gonna see something here. Acts chapter 19, right? So we're gonna start from verse 8, right? Paul entered the synagogue and spoke boldly there for 3 months, arguing persuasively about the kingdom of God. But some of them become obstinate. They refused to believe and publicly maligned the Way. Okay? You see that? So they publicly were talking bad things about the Way. All right? So you're still not convinced? All right. Let's go over to 23. I'm going to start from 21. Acts chapter 19, 21. After all this had happened, Paul decided to go to Jerusalem, passing through Macedonia and Achaia. After I had been there, he said, I must visit Rome also. He sent 2 of his helpers, Timothy and Eratus, to Macedonia, while he stayed in the province of Asia a little longer. Now listen to this. About that time, there arose a great disturbance about the Way. Okay? So let's see what happened. Why they have a problem with this Way? A silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought in no little business for the craftsmen. He called them together along with the workmen in related trades and said, Men, you know we receive a good income from this business. And you see and hear how this fellow Paul has convinced and led astray large numbers of people from Ephesus, people here in Ephesus, and in practically the whole province of Asia. He say that man-made gods are no gods at all. There is a danger not only to our trade, that our trade will lose its good name, but also the temple of the great goddess Artemis will be desecrated, and the goddess herself, who is worshipped throughout the province of Asia. All right, so let's go back up. So we see 23, where it says, about that time there arose a great disturbance about the way. If you notice, that way is in capital letter, right? So that means that is a proper noun, okay? All right. So let's go again. Let's look at if we see anything else about this way. Let's go to Acts chapter 22. Acts chapter 22. And we're gonna read from verse 1. Acts chapter 22 and verse 1. Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense. When they heard him speak to them in the Aramaic, they became quiet. Then Paul said, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in the city under Gamaliel. I was thoroughly trained in the law of our fathers, and just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison. Right? So he's admitted that before he was persecuted the followers of the way. Right? Notice it's still in capital letters. All right, so let's look again now. So if you're still not convinced, let's go to 24. Let's go over to 24 and see here. So now Paul is on trial, right? Paul is on trial, and let's see what he's gonna say. Let's see what he's gonna say here, right? So 5 days later, the high priest Ananias went down to Caesarea with some of the elders and a lawyer named Tertullus, and they brought their charges against Paul before the governor. When Paul was called in, Tertullus presented his case before Felix, who have enjoyed a long period of peace under you. He said, we have enjoyed a long period of peace under you, and your foresight has brought about reforms in the nation, everywhere and in every way. Most excellent Felix, we acknowledge this with profound gratitude, but in order not to weary you further, I would request that you be kind enough to hear us briefly. We have found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect, right? So you see, here is mentioned another sect called the Nazarenes. So he's accusing Paul of being a ringleader of this particular sect called the Nazarene, right? So let's see what Paul is going to say, right? So let's continue to read. And even tried to desecrate the temple. So we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to learn the truth about all these charges we are bringing against him. The Jews joined in the accusation, asserting that these things were true. When the governor mentioned for him to speak Paul replied, I know that for a number of years you have been a judge over this nation, so I gladly make my defense. You can easily verify that no more than 12 days ago I went up to Jerusalem to worship, right? My accusers did not find me arguing with anyone in the temple or stirring up a crowd in the synagogues or anywhere else in the city. And they cannot prove to you the charges that they are now making against me. However, I admit that I worship the God of our fathers as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. So you see that? Now, listen to something very interesting that Paul is going to say for those who think Paul is always saying that the laws is done away with. Right? So he says, I believe everything that agrees with the law and that is written in the prophets. And I have the same hope in God as these men, that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. Right? So you see, first of all, this is a two-pronged thing. Paul is defending himself and he's telling them, okay, yeah, I am a follower of the way. Right? And I also agree with the law and the prophets. You see that? So also notice here that this is long after the claim that they were called Christians at Antioch. See that? That was in chapter 17. This is in chapter 24, right? When he's now on trial. All right. So with that, I'll say shalom. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel, right? And I would entertain comments at shalakbazar@gmail.com. Shalom, family.